recording. So I'll say it one more time. If you just joined, go to the calendar invite, pull up the notes. Looks like we've got a bunch of you on there, which is good. And if you haven't already, click on the link for the tutor packet, follow the directions that are on the first tab, and then carefully look through the schedule to do a find on your name and make sure that all the times that it says are the times that you think you're working. And then also check the personnel list carefully that all of the information we have for you on your row is correct, including the courses that you tutor, all of your personal information, and the on and off-campus tutoring designation, and then go over to that roster and do that as well. So initial 2 places, one on the personnel list, one on the roster. Anna, anything else you wanted to add on that section?
No, I think that covers it.
Okay.
I have a question about the roster list. On the roster tab, there's the two columns for tutoring, and there's off and on.
Yeah.
So if I'm just doing math lab tutoring, do I put a yes under on campus or no? This is just for individual?
So this is all just for individual tutoring with students.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep. Thanks for asking. Yeah, ask if you need any clarifications on anything. Otherwise, I'm just going to start plowing through the notes.
I don't think I got an actual invitation. Could you send the link in the chat or something?
Anna, can you do that to Ben? And Anna or Naomi, maybe Naomi, since Anna's busy, just make a note to make sure that we check that Ben's on all of our lists everywhere for calendar invites. Probably that would be under your area. Okay. Good. Well, there's going to be a ton of details as we go through these notes, and I know I'm not going to get to all of the details. There's going to be things that you're going to learn as you go. There's going to be some things that you will miss. You're not going to catch every detail. You're not going to do everything perfectly. But we still always just want to keep this mantra that we developed last fall going through this year, this GGSS. If you're new, that means glorify God and serve students. I kind of coined this last fall when I was becoming overwhelmed with all of the details that were coming up as we were trying to quickly navigate and turn into hybrid tutoring and change a bunch of our procedures and add on different technology and different things. And I just kind of returned to what is our true purpose in Math Lab? What is our true purpose in CS Lab? What is your true purpose as you work individually with students? And I hope it is that you will try above all things to glorify God and serve students well. If we do that, then everything else is just gravy on top, because that's really the core of what we're doing and what we're striving to do. So I wanted to kind of refocus everybody on that task. And so I'm going to start with the GG part of it. So the GG part of it is glorify God. And so that should be our focus, to glorify God. And that's going to look different for each of you. We're all in a sanctification process. You would think that I would know a lot more than I do, but at my age, right? I'm old, I've lived through a bunch of experiences, but God's still sanctifying me and bringing me through his sanctification process. And then that's some of the amazing aspect of a relationship with God. It's always changing and growing. You're always learning more. You're always getting insights. And the place you can get that is from God's word. So I would just encourage you to be in his word, be taking some time to have some time with him, and be connected with other people that can encourage you along the way. So that's going to look different for each of you, but do whatever you need to do to be in a position where you truly can glorify God. And that's going to change even for yourself. So have some spiritual disciplines in place that will help to keep you kind of fresh and keep you learning and keep you in a place where you can say, yes, I'm going to look at this next moment and I'm going to try to glorify God in it. So for me lately, that's meant that I need to abide in him at every task. So when things are overwhelming, I just kind of stop and I say, okay, Lord, I don't know what to do next. Here we go into it. Help me with this. Give me your wisdom, Holy Spirit promptings. Here we go. Okay, so I've had to give myself a little pep talk kind of like that lately. So it's going to change all the time with how you do that. Here's some scriptures that have just been meaningful to me lately that I'll throw in here. This is always a good one. Whatever you do, do everything for the glory of God. I like the next one too. And God is able. I like the kind of cadence of this, or the symmetry of this verse. And God is able to make all grace abound to you. Look at the word all everywhere there. So that in all things, at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. So God makes the grace abound in that first part so that you can abound in every good work. So God's going to continue to give us grace to keep going for each step. John 15 is a great one too. Abide in me as I abide in you. Think of that. That's what's been my thing lately. Just as a branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who abide in me and I in them will bear much fruit. Because apart from me, I always like this part too, you can do nothing. So keep abiding in Christ. And then 2 Corinthians 4-6. There's tons of gems in here. That was my devotions this morning, kind of scanning through chapters 4-6. There's just a ton of stuff in there. So if you ever need any encouragement, look through there. I just wrote down some of the things that struck me in that passage as well. So do something to keep yourself alive in Christ so that out of your abundance will overflow to others. All the goodness that he can be in your life, and how then that can impact others. And that's going to take some disciplines. So I know it's hard. I've just been flying through this week, and I just kind of hit a wall this morning, and I just had to go to I hadn't been having I love my chair back there. It's my little quiet time chair. And I hadn't even sat in it really this week. So I just went and sat there, listened to the Lord, read some scripture, and it was really filled my cup. So put in your spiritual disciplines, take some time to learn from the Lord, be in his word so that you will glorify him in all that you do. And that'll make a big difference as you tutor as well, because then you will recognize people as people, okay? And people who are going through all kinds of things, and you'll be sensitive to his Holy Spirit to guide you through how you interact with them. And something that you say might make a big difference. It might not be the math that day. It just might be a smile or an encouragement to a student that really makes a difference. So you're all part of the team. We need every player. We're going to talk about the team and all the different roles in a minute. But I just picked on two of our experienced tutors because they've been around a long time and they're on their last semester. I guess they've been coined the J team now. They got a new name. So I thought that was awesome. But Jordan and John are two of our seniors that have been tutoring for a long time. So we've got our last semester with them. So I just picked on them, just this morning. And this is kind of good too. This is going to happen to you as well. Be flexible through the semester. You might be called to rise up to a challenge, and flex with something and go with the flow at any moment. So just kind of be ready to do that. But Jordan and John are so great. They were like, sure, we'd be happy to do that when I just asked them this morning. So I just asked them to just share 1 to 2 minutes of kind of how they think about serving students. So I don't know which of you wants to go first, but Jordan and John, you have the floor.
I can go first. Yeah, so we're apparently the J team now, thanks Dr. Auk. But yeah, like Professor Conrad said, I'm coming on my 6th semester of serving in math lab, so it feels like it's gone by very quickly, honestly. But I think one of the biggest things that I've learned in serving students, or at least how to serve students, is it's actually something we usually talk about in our meetings. I don't know if we'll get to that today, so I might as well point it out now. But that's this idea of serving humbly. When I came into math lab initially, I thought I had to be some math god that had every answer and had everything prepared. Because it's an intimidating position at first. You're this tutor that has to come in and you feel like you have to have everything together, but in truth, that's really not the case. a lot of the times I bring other people in to talk through different problems. Sometimes I say, I don't know. I don't know this one. It's been a couple years. Um, Honestly, you guys are not too long ago, you were in their same position. So you have an opportunity to develop these relationships where you're like, I was in the same place. I know what you're going through. Um, I remember doing these problems maybe. Um, I remember specifically there was this one group of people that I had. It was roughly like 7 students that came up through Calc 1 and then Calc 2 and multivariable. And when I was tutoring them in Calc 1, it was like one of my first semesters and I was like, "Ah, I don't know what I'm doing." Um, but they shared with me that they were like, yeah, at first you were kind of unapproachable because I think you felt like you needed to have everything together, but after a while, once we got to know you, like honestly, they became some friends that I got to have go through all these classes together. So I think my big message, and I'll step down here in a second, is just don't feel like you have to have everything together. We're all in this together. We're a team, especially now that COVID has hit. It gets weirder and weirder how those things work. So like Conrad said as well, stay flexible, which is something we're gonna have to work on together. But yeah, serve humbly. You are student leaders, but you're also one of them not too long ago. So yeah, I think that's what I got for you.
Thank you, Joran. Wise words. John, you want to add?
Yeah, I guess I would just say something that I've always felt was really important in tutoring, um, and I think is even more especially important now with COVID, and especially if you're tutoring virtually, which you might have some people virtually, some people in person, is just a lot of patience and over expressing that kind of you're in it together with the student, and the student, especially when it's a struggling student, because I'm sure a lot of us have all been there. I've been there where not getting something as fast as maybe the professor is going or classmates are going through the homework, and it feels like I'm being a burden. But it's just so helpful when someone uh, like is patient and extends that extra time, uh, shows that we're in it together. And yeah, I'd just say that's really important with tutoring, and especially online with whether it's technical difficulties or or whatever else. And then just checking up on students if you're tutoring in a group, or if you have someone online, and you're tutoring someone in person, you're trying to kind of keep them together. If a student is kind of quiet, make sure you're asking them kind of how they're thinking it's going, because they might be feeling a little overwhelmed. And then it's nice to just let them know it's okay to slow down, and we can go through that again. If you're online, were you able to see the board? Could you hear what we were saying there? Like just making sure they really feel included, and a part of the process as well.
Good. Thank you so much. Yeah, I wanted to do that just for multiple reasons, but um, I hope that you see from that just some wisdom that they've gained from tutoring over years, and you will gain that as well if you're a brand new tutor, and I'm sure you've seen yourself grow if you're a returning tutor. So you should just know one thing too, is that we're all a team, and there's lots of people that can help you. And so there are some tutors that have been in it longer. Those are going to be our lead tutors that you can go to with questions that you have or problems. There's room managers that are going to be able to help you. There's just this whole structure that we've developed. And I think we kind of hit our sweet spot now with all the different pieces. But it's a nice structure that's set up that hopefully will help you as you go through the process. So that's what's on page 2, the Math Lab team. So I'm the Math Lab and CS Lab director. So if you have issues or problems or questions, shoot me emails or talk with me. We want to improve things, so let us know. The managers and the lead team, they're pictured in that lovely Zoom meeting picture below. The managers this semester, we said goodbye to Grace. She's off student teaching. So send her an email, say you miss her. But now we have Anna's carrying on, and we have our two new managers who have stepped up to the plate and are really doing a lot. So Naomi and Ruth are our new managers. So if you have any issues with any of like a name tag or something not going wrong right with materials or things like that, they're your point people for those things. So email them, let them know if you need anything. Then there's a lead team. We kind of had a hodgepodge of structures, and now we really kind of landed on a good structure this semester. Leads, there's only going to be, I've kind of made the lead team pretty small because it was just getting kind of gangly with all this structure. So we kind of looked at what's the smallest set of people that I can talk with, because I needed to keep it smaller. So, and I wanted to have a point person per night, someone who was just kind of the buck stops here. This is the person that needs to be in charge, needs to be making sure things are running well, is going to run around here and there and just make sure you're all doing okay and see if you have any questions, especially at the beginning. So those are going to be our lead tutors. And if you look at the schedule, you'll see at the top of the schedule, there's a silver line and it will say who the lead is for your night. So this is the Math Lab colorful schedule that you just were checking. So look at the top of that, that tells you who your lead tutor is for the night. So they're a great person who's experienced that you can ask if you have any questions with anything or problems. The computer's not working or whatever. They're a good person that you can consult with. So get to know who your lead tutor is. They'll introduce themselves on the first night. The next set of people are course contacts. So course contacts, I kind of view them as the people who are going to babysit a certain course and make sure that we are serving them well. So they're going to connect with the profs at the beginning of the term. And then they're going to be the conduit between the prof and us to make sure that we've got all of our answer keys in place, that we just are learning how best to tutor those students. Different classes have different needs, so they're going to be paying attention to that. If you work with a particular course, talk with your course contact, because maybe you have ideas for how we can best serve students, or maybe you have problems with, I can't get it, I don't understand how to use the answer key or things like that. So talk to that course contact because they should be the expert on a course. Then there's room managers. Room managers are going to be the person in charge of a room. And so they'll make sure that that room is set up correctly. And then they're going to start the tutor lab session for each room as well. So you'll see that there's room managers and room groups for each night also. So there's a summary of roles. Hopefully you're keeping up with me on the notes. I'm kind of highlighting as I go. With the leads, they're kind of the expert and the communicator, the point person, etc. Leads and room managers are going to be the ones setting things up. Floats are the next thing was kind of new over interim, and now we have it again in the spring. Floats we added kind of after we learned from last fall. We thought you all were going to have to stay in your little box and never move as you tutored. We recognized, okay, you can move around and that there's great variability in the number of students coming for different classes each night. So we tried to provide some flexibility. This is what we miss about the olden days with Math Lab. You were all in one big happy room, all helping one another. So that's what floats can kind of help do, is bring back a little bit of an element of that, where they can move to wherever the crowds happen to be that night. So floats, if you're a float, you will see on the schedule that you appear under the HC 114 part of the schedule. So that should help to remind you that that's where you're going to go to get name tags. And that's where you're going to start. Okay, but you may float between 113 and 114. So you may be serving in 114 or 113, wherever you serve, that's where you should put your comments for the night. So if you serve in 114, have a tutor in that room, the lead tutor in that room, or room manager in that room, put the comments in that session. And for all comments for everybody, you should always add your name to them. I don't really pay attention to who owns a session in an email I receive anymore. I only pay attention to the name associated with the comments, just because everybody's all over the place and they don't make sense anymore, those session emails. So in those comments, make sure you're attaching your name, and floats, put your comments wherever you end up working. Floats also are going to have to watch out for capacity in room. We're going to talk about this later too, but total capacity of a room is something you should kind of be watching, especially for students. That's really a student capacity, as long as tutors are maintaining 6-foot social distancing. So tutors can go a little bit above capacity, just like instructors do for a room. If you look at a capacity of a room, that's really student capacity, and an instructor is an additional person in a room. So the total capacity is always at minimal total capacity plus 1 instructor. We can kind of hedge on that a little bit as long as we are maintaining that 6-foot distance, social distancing, but try to kind of keep those caps. We never really ran into that problem last fall, except with discrete. We don't know where our big groups will be this spring, so you just have to kind of watch that. Okay, everyone, these are just some things that I picked out. You're going to see there's a lot more notes, but I tried to pick out the most important things. So everyone will run a Tutor Lab session and a Zoom session, so you'll need to be able to find your session in your Zoom link. Also, here's a big one. Understand the difference between those two things that I'm highlighting. Can somebody who is not a lead, because I've banged this into them, tell us what the difference is between those two types of sessions and when you might use those two types of sessions?
If if all of the tutors for that section are, unavailable to be in person that night, you would use the virtual only. And if not, if anyone's in person, you use just the regular one.
Wonderful, thank you. So most of the time, 99% of the time, you're going to use this one. Use this mostly. This one is only if no face-to-face component exists. So we've got both face-to-face and sometimes virtual only tutors, but that doesn't mean that you use the virtual only session. You will use this session because what that does is it allows students to make reservations, okay? When I have that open, that session as a possibility, that allows students to make reservations and come face-to-face. So I will delete those sessions if we ever get to a point where people are quarantining and we all of a sudden had to flip over to a virtual only session. What that does then is it closes down all reservations for students and they're not able to make a reservation for that session. So it's very important that you understand that you are usually 99% of the time going to be using the session that has a name that does not have virtual only on it. The only time you're going to use that virtual only is if there is no face-to-face component because something has happened and we've needed to flip over to that. So be very careful which session you open for each night. You're going to find your particular session with your date and your courses served and then pick that appropriate one. Okay, everyone else can help by understanding the session checklist. So the session checklist, if you haven't bookmarked that on your computer, do, because we've tried to, there's so many details, we tried to centralize it into that checklist. So that can be your beginning point to a lot of answers to questions and also kind of an outline of the things that you should be doing. So if it's kind of your first time, make sure we did this at the practice sessions. If you're new, kind of going through that session checklist. So make sure you understand all the pieces on that, you're comfortable with it, and ask if you need help. So that's that next question, ask questions, get help from somebody else if you're confused. It's better to ask and get it right than to kind of stumble through it. So ask people around you for how to do things. Know your room map for the semester. So we're in different rooms than we were last fall. So don't assume you're going to the same place. Make sure you know where you're going from the schedule and also the room maps. Anna has edited those. We're not going to be as concerned about you keeping last semester. If you were with us, you know that we made little boxes and we were trying to say these seat numbers are for this course and these seat numbers are for that course. we're not going to be that specific. We more want you to keep the half of the room for whatever is on the seat on that room map. So for example, HC 114, it's divided in half. We've got Calc 2 over by the instructor station, pre-calc Calc 1 by the doorway. So always keep that similar layout for students so that students kind of know where to go. I put it that way because I have a feeling we'll have way more Calc 2 students. And so I wanted them to be able to use the instructor station and their own personal laptop as two different things for that particular group. Likewise, the other places in 113, we put places where you're going to be with different student groups, and in 112. So make sure you know where you're supposed to be with the particular student group that you're serving. And also you help students to kind of learn that. That will just help them. They'll always know, okay, this is where I always go to get help. I won't be in the wrong half of the room and in front of the wrong tutor, you know, if I come to this place. So try to be consistent with that and help students with that. Then help your room manager and leads set things up and have our space looking good, help them with taking down things and putting them away as well. Also understand the student facing components of things so that you can help students if they have any questions. So go look at tutorlabs.bethel.edu if you haven't before. Know how you could explain to a student, oh, you go there, you go down to the math section, you look for the reservation tab, you click on that, and that's where you can make a reservation. Or go to the virtual sign-in spot, that's where you're gonna sign in, you'll do your attendance, and then a Zoom link will be provided. You don't know what a difference you might make in helping a student. I have even been shocked. I've had this ongoing conversation with a student who's already to meet you all tonight. They're just going, they're ready to go. They emailed me on Monday and said, so why can't, it's 3 days ahead of when Math Lab opens. How come I can't make a reservation yet? This was at like 10 o'clock in the morning. Anyone know the answer to that question? It took me a second to think about, so why can't they? It wasn't 3 literal days. It had to be 6 o'clock, right? 6 o'clock is when we start tonight. So the reservations hadn't opened. So reservations open for students 3 days ahead of each session. And so they're chomping at the bit wanting to do it. And they have questions. So if you can kind of understand how things work, that will help if they have questions. Because just helping them to log on and things like that will be important. That same person emailed me this morning again and said, so how will I get the link to log on? You know, so no answers to questions like this, because then you can help students. The answer to that is go, because I guess she flipped to being virtual. She wants to be virtual now. She no longer wants to make a reservation. So I told her, yeah, go tonight, go to that virtual login, and then, and this is another thing for you all to be aware of, that Zoom link won't be available to those students until you open it up. So be on time, be ahead of schedule so that you can open up your session so that they can do attendance, and then you can open the Zoom session as well so that they will have that link available and can log on. So students get kind of freaked out if they don't see things. That's why if you can be as timely as possible and also as aware of those procedures as you can. So learn about them if you don't know about them already. So be friendly, be helpful. This is helping this student and give her extra help to that other student, or the 2 beeps you'll hear on the, when they scan IDs. One is the positive one. So that's the first one. And if you click on the other one, you'll see the negative. They had a problem. What that would mean is they didn't do a reservation. So that second student, if you hear that beep, then that means you need to help them make a reservation. They can go over to the side, they can scan the QR code, and on the spot, they can make a reservation. Leave comments. So this is after the session. I already mentioned this. Make sure you attach your name. And if there's anything that was a problem or anything that I should know about, leave those comments for me. Those comments at the end of the session are mainly about Math Lab. So how did Math Lab go? Things like that. If you had a thing like, oh, everybody had problems with number 23 in section 6.4, those don't have to go in the comments. Those are more appropriate to be emailed directly to the prof. Okay, so email the prof and let them know if you had like a consistent thing happening with their student group. That's kind of nice for them to know what was going on. But those comments at the end of the session are things that I will be reading. Sometimes profs read those, but they don't always read those. So they aren't going to catch some things that you might say that are course specific. So anything that's course specific, try to email the prof. Anything that relates to Math Lab, which I like to hear things like, it went well, or we had a ton of students, but everyone was served, or we had a ton of students and we need more tutors, you know, or we need to move, or we need to change. So let me know comments like that. Then help with total room capacity, seat assignment, and attendance. So total room, I already talked about that. Just be watching that your room doesn't get above that for students, and that you're being careful with 6-foot distancing. Stop signs, there's red stop signs available. I know that it gets busy and people forget to do this, but it's pretty important because we are still supposed to keep track of seat assignments. Therefore, can anyone use the same seat in any session? Yes or no? No, good. There's a one-to-one correspondence between students and seats, okay? And so each seat can only be used once per session. So if a student leaves, try to put a stop sign there so it's not awkward for when another student comes in. They'll know that they can't use that seat. Then you also try to do a really good job of marking seat assignments. Those will occur in tutor labs. And then also remind students to be signing in and out, especially the virtual aspect. People forget to sign out. So if you can help remind them to sign out, that's great. This virtual only chunk was there, but Trey rescued us all and gave the right answers, so we don't need that. Okay. I'm on to logistics, okay? So again, there's a ton of stuff in this document. We're not going to get to it all. We only have 17 more minutes, but you should sometime read through all of the things that I don't cover. So I'm going to try to cover some of these logistics pieces. Anna's going to cover a little bit of the session, and I'm not going to get to the rest of it, but scan your eyes over the rest of it. There's lots of important details. This is like your training manual. And if you didn't know it already, you can record this time on your timesheet for this meeting. So beginning dates, hopefully you all know that it begins tonight. You may get some questions about CS Lab, or that Sunday, February 14th is when that begins. So make sure you kind of understand that as well. We don't serve psych stat students. Sometimes that's not going to probably be a problem this semester because they pretty much have to go by course. But if anyone asks, they have their own sessions, and business problem solving is served in Business Lab. Changes this semester, we really need some CS Lab greeters. I'm going to be doing that starting March 7 because that's notoriously when that starts to get busy. We have a pretty skeletal staff in CS Lab. We know that we'll get students in, so you don't have to know anything about CS. You just need to be a friendly person who will learn about breakout rooms. So if you want some more hours, take a look at the CS Lab schedule. It's another tab on the schedule that you can look at, and you can see that we only have Sunday covered and possibly one of the Thursday sessions, but we still need greeters for the rest of the sessions. So if you are interested in that opportunity, we really need somebody to do that and be kind of a front end for CS Lab. HC 113, again, is going to be only for Math Lab pretty much. The only other thing that's going to be in there is staff lunches and some meetings. So let us know if there's any problems with that. But otherwise, it's pretty great. We should be able to use that room pretty exclusively for ourselves. We're in only 3 rooms. We were in 4 rooms last fall. We're going to start with 3 rooms and see how that goes, but I have 4 rooms reserved in Banner. So we do have HC 269 in our back pocket. If you start to see, wow, we're really not doing well with serving these courses in this room, we're kind of bursting at the seams, we could use another space, we will be glad to open up another room. So the managers will scramble, we'll quick get name tags and laptops and all that in the right places. Oh, and by the way, some good news just happened last night. I think we're on the verge of getting some new laptops. yay. So those clunky old laptops might be changed. So lead tutors, we might go back to putting a lock on our laptops, okay? But we will set things up in 269 if needed. So you all should be aware of that. There's sometimes a one-off where you get a really busy group, you know, before a test or something. But if you're consistently seeing, no, this is a class that needs an extra room, let us know and we will do that. Resources, you should really know about these resources. Kind of the main focus point is that tutor folder. So this tutor folder is a good place to start. That's something you could bookmark as well, because everything else is in that tutor folder. So that tutor folder, if you don't have access to that, email Anna and she can add you to it. But it contains a lot of stuff. It has a communication folder where I try to remember to put all of the emails I've sent to you if you ever need to look back at some of those. It's got links to all the things that are below this too. So the session checklist is in that folder, the maps and course folders, all that kind of stuff is linked out of this. So use that as a beginning point. We've already talked about reviewing the session checklist and reviewing that maps. The course folders and answer keys. So course folders, we've got those for electronic access to textbooks and answer keys. And then there are some physical answer keys as well in the cabinets. So be careful with all of those. I didn't give my speech, I don't think last fall. I told, so hopefully the profs will forgive me, but we did have an answer key that left us the very first math lab session or semester that we had. I think it's 29 years ago. I think next year we turn 30. I told the profs all wanted to take answer keys completely out of math lab at that point. And I said, no, I will tell this story every single time that one answer key was stolen, so that they remember to be super careful with answer keys. So answer keys that are physical should be in your, there's a blank there, what or in the what? Somebody tell me who's old.
Cart or your arm.
Yep. They should either be in the cart or cabinet or in your arm, okay? Don't leave them laying around because that's what can happen. That's what happened, I think, that one time. Somebody picked it up and left with the answer key. So don't leave them laying around on a table or desk. Always have them either in your arm or in the cabinet or cart. So some of you have tutoring carts, you can stick it on there because you know that a student's not going to do that, but don't just lay it on a desk where a student could come by and pick that up. So be careful with those and have honesty with them. And anybody know why I have this wonderful picture over there? This is from Dr. Yang. This is the purple monkey. So those of you who know how to use our online answer keys, the access code for all of you is purple monkey with no space. So if you need to open up an answer key that's electronic, you're going to be using that as your password. So purple monkey is the password with no space. And there he is. I laughed when I met purple monkey and understood who that was. He said he uses it to show that saddle points can occur in different, I use Pringles for saddle points, but I guess he uses this purple monkey for saddle points to show that they can occur in different places that don't look like a saddle. So yeah, look for the saddle points. I don't know where they are. Okay, Mathematica helps. Just so you're aware, there's a whole tab on this on the schedule, so you can get a link towards where is the install information or where is the crash course or things like that. Dr. Yang is the point person if anybody is having licensing issues. If they have install issues, try to help them with that. But if the license is truly being weird to them, he is the point person. So don't bug him with every single Mathematica question. But if it's a true licensing problem, like sometimes we've seen things where the license just doesn't work, then he's our manager for Bethel for licensing through Mathematica. Then use each other for resources as well. Okay, emergency sub-procedures. I'm going to go through this super quickly, but they're really important for you to follow. The old sub-procedures are listed here. We still follow those in that you need to email to get yourself a sub. So you're responsible for getting a sub for yourself. And then you should, after you get a sub, that you should then email and let Vicky, myself, and your lead all know who the sub is for you. So if you are getting a sub and you look ahead, you know you're going to have this conflict and you get a sub for yourself, make sure once you get that sub confirmed that you email those 3 people. But this semester, we've got these new pieces as well with COVID. If you're sick or if you're quarantined, the very first step is to email Ruth Livingston and me. Okay, so email us because we will try to figure out how we're going to handle that night. It's pretty complicated these days. We might be flipping to a virtual only session, for example. So that's really your first step. We're going to help you then through that process. We got a whole tab on the schedule for quarantine handling, but email us first right away as soon as you know, okay, I just got the word I have to quarantine. Email us so that we can help you figure out things. Sometimes it'll work just fine and you can tutor virtually. Other times we'll have to get a sub. And this is just one other comment that the tutors have said works best. It works best, you know, if you know somebody who serves your same courses, if you just directly email them. Otherwise, you can reply all to an email that I have sent to you, and that will go out to all tutors if you're looking for a sub. Okay, session procedures. I haven't given you much time, Anna, but why don't you pick out of that anything that's most important that you want to cover next?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is review anyway, and it's more so you can all just read through it on your own to get an understanding of what materials you have access to and where they're located. But I think the most important thing to emphasize from this section is, especially in the first week, to please make sure you show up early. Room managers should be helping or facilitating setup, but they're mostly going to be setting up tutor labs. So the more you can do to set up the physical aspects of Math Lab will be really helpful. And as Professor Conrad said, students are very excited to come to Math Lab and they want to get started right away. So if we can be prepared beforehand and start on time, that will benefit both students and tutors. So some of the things you can help with are getting name tags ready. There's the welcome poster that's located in HC 113. And then we used to put like course names on each of the tables that we worked at, but we've adjusted in these times. So there's course posters that you're going to post and tape outside of each room. If there is ever a chance where a room reaches capacity, there's also signs in your materials folder to post on the outside of the room to say that the session is closed and that students should go over onto Zoom. One other thing, additional setup for Zoom, is that you should be able to make sure you're setting up so that you can cater to both students on Zoom and students in the classroom so that they can see the work that you're going through.
Anything else you wanted to highlight, Anna?
I think the rest of the materials you guys can read through on your own. The thing I'll end with is just to please be careful in helping down take materials and be careful with your answer keys. Please leave comments with anything that happens during the session so we can help to improve things for the future. Specifically for floats, please make sure to comment which room you're working in. And then room managers should get about a 5 or 10 minute warning because we want to be respectful of both your time and students' time.
Thank you, Anna. I'm going to move. There's like a yellow little thing that I was going to move to wherever we ended. I think I'll just put it way up at the top. There's your yellow line you can read on your own. Okay, so everything underneath there, please do take some time to read through some of those things. There's a lot of different pieces included in there, especially if you're new. Make sure you read through these things. If you're returning, kind of glance through. That's just good reminders of some of these things that we want to be mindful of. So all of these pieces are helpful. And I'll maybe just end by going way down to pay procedure. There's a yellow highlight there. Pay has really been, all over the place this year. And you all have different roles and different even moments in your role when you're going to have different contracts that you use. So please pay attention to the pay details to make sure that you understand when you're going to be using the different contracts that you may have, and also that you have all of the different contracts that you need. I've stressed this already with the leads and the room managers. So make sure that you are putting your pay in the appropriate timesheet. And if you have any questions, let me know, or talk with Vicki if you need any timesheets that you don't already have, and then CC me on that. I'll end with this last piece that's in there as well, this tutor and student feedback. Those are also good things to look through. There's some advice from current and past tutors, and then there's some actual comments. So these positive experiences in math lab, and comments directly out of students' assessments. Those are really good for you to read. You know, if you ever get kind of down and are like, oh my word, that was an overwhelming night. Read some of these comments, will kind of recenter you and be like, oh yeah, we're here to serve students. They really do appreciate it. And you really are making an impact on students. So after you get kind of a couple sessions under your belt, you'll feel a lot better, especially if you're brand new. You're going to learn a lot from tutoring and from doing it actually. So dive into it, ask questions, be flexible, and then above all things, seek to glorify God and serve students well. And we'll be off to another good semester. Any questions? Got about 2 minutes for questions. Doesn't sound like it. I'll just say I have lots of confidence in you. You're a great team. It was fun to hear even from some of the practice sessions and things, the experienced tutors who led some of those when some of the practice sessions went haywire or needed people to be flexible, that they said that the tutors were really kind and nice and looked like they were really smart too. And we're going to be a great new team of tutors as well. So we've got a really competent leadership team, and it sounds like we've got some great new tutors coming up as well. So I think you will do a great job in serving students. And so go forward in that confidence and put your confidence in the Lord, and you will have a great semester. So let me know if you have any questions, and then be talking with others around you as you work through it as a team. So thanks so much for carving out the time for this meeting, and have a great rest of your day. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yay. We made it. By God's grace. Oh, wow. If people only knew, right? Like Anna, if they only knew what we were looking at last night.
Yeah, looked a little different.
Yeah. But God is good, gives us the grace to get through to the next step. So I think it went okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that especially if people do take that seriously and read through the rest of it, we should be okay, because that will cover some of the details that we didn't have time to talk about.
Yeah.
So you all still able to come back to our meeting time? I forget when that is.
It's at 12:30.
12:30. Okay. Yep. Does that work still?
Yep.
Okay, good. Well, I might eat quick, because then I think I go solid from then until 4:15. So I'm going to go eat quick, and then we'll see you back at that time. So thanks so much. Appreciate you all very much. We'll see you later.
Thank
Bye.
you.